men's hats. Well, see, this just goes back to the thing I said about there being really no good hats for men aside from ball caps. Can't really wear fedoras anymore. That comes with its own connotations. And this shirt hat thing, I don't know if that fad's ever gonna catch on. Food isn't allowed in the living room. His tablet isn't allowed in the kitchen. He beat the system. I quit. And yeah, as you as you probably should at this point, I will say, you should probably quit. He's just too smart for you. I'm sorry. You lose. Push here. Okay. Why is it not working? Yeah, that sticker seems really dumb. Why couldn't you have gotten one that goes on the button itself that says push here? Or just, to hell, even just push, man. What the hell is going on? Come on. So there's a rule against pumpkins in my dorm, but it doesn't say anything about pineapples. Okay, cute. You could have used a big-ass turnip, though. You know, the original jack-o'-lanterns. Also, why is there a rule against pumpkins? I don't understand. What's wrong with pumpkin? Boss insisted I work in the office today. My boss and I had a disagreement about working from home this week. The office is in San Francisco. I live in the East Bay and need to cross the Bay Bridge to get to work. We had an important presentation scheduled today. I wanted to do it virtual because of the APEC meeting is in... Sorry, there's no oven there. I just can't read today. Because the APEC meeting is in San Francisco this week, and everything else seems disrupted. President Biden and Chinese President Xi are here. It's a 2-hour commute on a typical day, and I told my boss it might not be feasible to come in this week. He insisted that I come in, so I said, okay, but don't blame me if I get stuck in traffic. We had a pretty heated discussion about it. So today, there's a huge backup on every freeway toward the Bay Bridge because protesters have chained themselves across all 5 lanes. Okay? I didn't hear anything about that happening. What the hell? The bridge is completely closed. Now, the boss wants me to do the presentation virtual, but I told him I can't. I'm stuck in traffic. I can't operate my vehicle and do the presentation. You'll have to do it without me. But he isn't really qualified. What a dumbass. Your boss is kind of stupid, I gotta admit. Also, I have been stuck on the Bay Bridge before, one time, and oh my god, I have never seen a traffic jam last that long. Ever. Anywhere I've ever been. I would take LA every day in its worst fashion over that one goddamn bridge in that area. Calling me on the day off, cha-ching! This happened well over a year ago, but as a unionized employee, I get every 3rd Friday off. On my day off, I'm playing some video games and get a text from the boss. I know it's your day off, but whatever, that's easy to ignore. But then I get a second text, and after I ignore that, I get a call. Boss, I know it's your day off, but our phones are down. No worries, I'll handle it. We hang up and I call our phone provider. I'm the IT and the contact there, and this isn't my first call ever to them, so I literally have their service department saved in my phone. I call, I register the problem, they say they'll look into it. I provide them my boss's name and extension, and to call him when it's fixed. I then call my boss back and let him know that they'll call him ASAP. But now for the malicious compliance bit. Our contract stipulates a minimum call-in of 4 hours, meaning that you cannot pay me less than 4 hours for a day unless it's by my own choosing. If you call me in for an hour and send me home, I get 4 hours of pay. But wait, there's more. We also have an overtime clause that pays overtime at 150%. And lastly, we have a clause that says all overtime must be approved by the boss, or else it is 1-to-1 time off in lieu, which you can take at 1-to-1 ration, i.e., if I decide that the weekend is a good time for server updates, I don't need to ask for approval. But my 2 hours of work only translates to 2 hours of paid time off elsewhere. Yeah, you lost me with that one. But anyway, combine all this in one delightful batch, and you get a 10-minute call that results in 6 hours of banked time off. I went right back to my video games, filled out my timesheet the week after, and said, I know it's your day off, but is implied consent for overtime. Minimum call out of 4 hours is 150%, is 6 hours. Sorry, I'm having trouble today. Almost an entire day off with pay in exchange for a 10-minute call? Thank you very much. Bonus. Guess who has 2 thumbs and has since then never been called on his day off? This unionized guy. Hint, get unionized, fight back. Yeah, unions are pretty sick, bro. Oh, man. Manager told me to call the person of the computer I was working on, so I did. I was sitting in my office one slow day and the CEO walked in. Always a pucker moment, even though I'm on very good terms with him, and he handed me an obviously non-business laptop and asked if I could get it it back up and running, as it had very important thing on it that was needed shortly, and I wasn't doing anything, and he still signed my paycheck. I said, well, you got it, sir. Later, a middle mangler comes in and asks me to do something, and I say, you're number 2 in line, and pointed to the obviously not corporate laptop I was fixing. Mangler didn't like that much and demanded I call whoever and tell them that it wasn't acceptable for me to be working on personal equipment. Oh boy, I see where this one's going. So I pulled out my cell phone and called. Mangler could only hear half of my convo, but what he heard was something like, hey Tom, I got Bob here telling me it's not acceptable for me to be working on your personal stuff, and he wanted me to call and tell you. Oh sure, he's right here, hang on. And I handed the phone to the Mangler. Mangler started off saying, it's not acceptable, and then his eyes got real big, and the rest of the conversation was yes sir and no sir. He hung up and thundered, why didn't you tell me it was the CEO's laptop? And I said, you didn't give me a chance, and demanded I call them right now. Oh, yeah, trying to blame it on you. Why did you do that to me? I didn't do it to you, dumb. I need a doctor's note to work from home for more than 2 days while I have an unidentified, presumably contagious illness, if you insist. It's a tale as old as capitalism. My job, which to be fair, I freaking adore working at and am so grateful for and happy with, requires a doctor's note because I've been sick and working from home for 2 days. Now, I haven't had just a minor cold or flu. Several days ago, I came down with the worst cold or flu symptoms you can imagine. And then, things started going downhill from there. It got to the point where I have now been at the ER 2 days in a row because of tonsillitis and excruciating pain brought on by swallowing tiny sips of water. Oh man, I deal with that a lot. It's not great, and despite a whole battery of swabs and tests, the doctors don't really know what the underlying bacteria or virus causing these symptoms is. Obviously, there's no way in hell I want to infect my coworkers with this plague, so I told HR that I would be working from home until I'm feeling better, since my job can be done 100% remotely. They hit me back with the ever-famous, if you need to work from home for more than 2 days in a week, you'll need a doctor's note since it's against policy. My first instinct was to go into work looking, sounding, and feeling like death warmed up, but I don't want to infect my colleagues. I legitimately believe that I would pass out on my walk to work and would have been taken to the hospital yet again. Instead, I spoke to the ER doctor from earlier this evening, my second visit in as many days. I asked him how long he thought I should stay away from work or work from home, and then told him I needed a note so I could stay home. He had a brief flash of vaguely furious what the f across his face at the idea that my job would force someone as sick as I am to come in and risk health of those around me. Then assured me he would write the note. I was thinking it would just be a basic, whatever, should continue to work from home until the end of the week. Nah, bro came through for me. He wrote a note saying that I should be off work for a minimum, at least another week, and then added the pièce de résistance as his last line. Infectious diseases require more than 2 days to improve. Old boss told me to contact his lawyers, so I did. Just a quick disclaimer, this is a burner account because my real one gives away where I'm from and who I am, and if anybody I know sees this post, I'll be recognizable. So, this started some time back. I got fired from my job due to an injury and had to be hospitalized for a significant time. In my contract, it stated that if I had more than XXX amount of sick days in a 12-month period, I could get my contract terminated within 1 month notice. So that happened, and of course I contacted my union. They told me it was a legal termination, but they asked about a specific part of my contract, which was about my commission. Turns out, I've missed out on some special commission during my employment, and totally missed it when I read my contract when I was employed. Can't really get closer to which kind of commission due to my anonymity. My union advised me to contact the boss, show him that part of my contract, and profit off the missing commission? Anyway, and try to get a settlement. I was looking for what is the equivalent to around 3,000 euro. I went to see my boss and started with a nice chat. After about 10 minutes, I brought up the issue and showed him my contract and showed him that I've never gotten the commission stated in the contract. My boss told me straight up to contact his lawyers and that we were done talking and told me to leave. Cue malicious compliance. I went home, looked every paycheck through, and set up a meeting with a lawyer. We found a lot of small mistakes in the paychecks and summed it all up. We sent an official letter to his lawyers and got an answer a few days later. Now he was willing to settle for the first amount, equivalent of 3,000. I smiled and laughed. No can do, Mr. Boss Man. Not anymore. Now I want the full amount, which is equivalent to 10,000 euro plus pension, plus 15% in damages, plus all legal fees, and I have proof of everything to back up my claim. Due date of the court. And guess what? He lost big time. I've now planned a nice vacation and still have more money than I asked for in the first place. I love stories like that. I love stories like that, man. People don't understand why you're leaving early. I was working for a smallish company, about 60 employees across several locations. IT support for both hardware, laptops, phones, and software. When I was hired, just under 9 years ago, it was verbally agreed that instead of clocking any callouts as overtime, I would just take the time in lieu. Callouts were always always minimal, and there were never any issues with me taking the time here and there to make up for it. Any calls in the middle of the night were quickly resolved, and I've had no problem getting back to sleep. Appointments in the middle of the day were fine because of the additional hours from whenever. This worked well for almost my entire time there. I also always started early, just depending on when I left the house. Got into the office, got my coffee, could have been anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes because I would leave the house earlier so as not to wake the family if school was off that day. I didn't care at that point. Never bothered me. They got free time from me, but again, I did not care because honestly, what else did I have to do? It was a great job until it wasn't. One weekend I was working on some hardware maintenance, cleaning up wiring, Ethernet plugs, installing a new UPS that took me the better part of Sunday to complete, 6 to 8 hours. This was understood, approved in advance, and appreciated. The following week, I decided to start burning those extra hours up. I still came in early as I had done for years, but started leaving an hour early from my regular end time every day if nothing was going on. This is important. If something needed done, I got it done. Oh man, they expected so much from you. I was reachable via email until early evening and phone pretty much 24/7. This particular week was slow, so I had nothing going on. I left an hour early for the first 4 days. On Friday, my boss came to me and said, people noticed that you've been leaving early this week. I'd like you to make sure you stay in your office until the scheduled end of day. Oh yeah, they don't mind it when you show up and work for free early, but if you leave an hour early because nothing's going on, they get pissy, right? I explained to him that I was burning up loo days, and he just reiterated that it looks bad to others. Seriously? You can't tell the others that I work my 40 hours a week, just not at the same time as them? Fine, cue the MC. I immediately submitted 4 hours of overtime for the hours that I didn't take in lieu. I still showed up at the office at whatever time I got there, but didn't not start any work until 8 a.m. If asked, I would say, sure, 8 a.m. start time. If I got called outside of office hours, depending on how long I spent on the issue, I logged it as overtime. User calls me at 7 p.m. to ask a question, I answer him in 30 seconds. 1 hour of OT, baby. When my boss started to ask, how come you're submitting all this overtime? I responded with a simple, some people don't understand or like me taking lieu time, so I need to claim it as overtime since I'm at my desk from 8 to 4. Because I wasn't available at his beck and call, it ended up costing them more money. 95% of my job could be done from home because of full remote access, but that stupid old school mentality means that people in the office need to see you at your desk all day long. I left the company very shortly after that for a much better paying job with full work from home. Know your worth. I used my meal plan to feed over 120 less fortunate people. Good lord. All right. This happened my freshman year of college about 20 years ago. My university had just invested in a big new dining hall, and to help pay for their investment required all new students to buy a 150 meal plan both semesters. This was a big financial burden, being from a lower middle class family, but my parents pooled funds to help me out and make it happen. Shortly into my first semester, I found out from friends that the meals you didn't use didn't roll over. Since I lived off campus, I knew I wouldn't be able to use them all. Heading into November, I realized I would end up with 60 to 75 meals left over, and I complained about this a lot to family and friends because it seemed like such a waste. Oh, they love it when that happens, though. In comes the plan. My freshman year of college was also my cousin's senior year, and we hung out pretty often. He was the biggest trickster slash prankster type you ever met. One night, while we were drinking, he says, what if you brought a bunch of homeless people in to use your meals? How much would that piss off the self-righteous bastards? We laughed all night, but the more I thought about the idea, the more I really started to like it. We talked all weekend and hatched a plan. On Monday morning, we went down to the local Salvation Army around the corner. I've grown to really despise the organization, but in the early 2000s in a small town in USA, it's what we had. We told the lady at the desk, I'd like to feed people in need with my meal plan. She was hesitant at first, but said she was working with people that this would be a huge blessing to, especially during the holiday season. She helped me organize 2 days the following week where around 30 people would meet me at the dining hall and we'd eat. I would wear a certain hat so they could find me, and then we would go and eat. The day finally arrived and all kinds of people were there. There were homeless people in tattered clothes, there were families with kids that seemed excited to eat out, there was even one family I will always remember that seemed embarrassed to take a handout, but I made an effort to talk to everybody to help make them feel welcomed. At noon, we headed into the dining hall. I walked up to the lady at the entrance and said, these people are with me, they're my friends, I would like to swipe them in. She looked confused, but reluctantly said okay. To say we got every reaction humanly possible would be an understatement. There were staff that were obviously annoyed with the influx of diners, there were students that were laughing, there were students that were giving me the silent clap, there were snobbish faculty members that seemed to be disgusted at the type of people coming into the dining hall. I didn't care. Eventually, a head staff member came up and said that they knew what I was doing and they didn't like it. I said, these are my friends eating with me. I paid for these meals. Am I doing anything wrong? She was stumped. I love that. I know what you're doing. I don't like it. I really don't give a flying fuck. Maybe you should go away and mind your own business. business. The next day, the same situation happened with the same reactions. It seemed that I had caused quite a stir on campus, and it just so happened that the university present? Oh, I don't know what a university present is, but the university resident was eating there that day. She came up to me and said, even though she would ask that I not tell me friends to do the same thing with their meals at the... Oh, I see. She was proud that her students had the heart to do something for others like that. The following semester, I did the exact same thing. I even used my meals sparingly so I could bring in more people. The one memory will always stick out in my head is the family with the little kids so excited to go to the pizza bar and soft serve ice cream machine, giggling the whole time. To this day, it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. Me and my friends and family still have a drink and chuckle over the story and the snooty, angry reactions that I got. I like you. I like you a lot. You're a cool person. I appreciate you. Screw universities, man. You want proof that my fiance is sick? You got it. I, 25, am engaged to my fiance Joey, who's 26. He recently had surgery on his leg and hip, but there were complications, and he has been sick and weak since. We try not to ask for help, but this has put a big financial strain on us, to the point where we spent our wedding savings on his recovery. We're fine with this, because if we need to have a courthouse wedding, we're cool with him. We just wanted him to be healthy. But we did set up a temporary donation page to help with some of the expenses. A friend of mine, Carla, 25, donated about $10 a month ago, and I reached out to her to thank her. Last week, we posted an update not asking for more money, but just to let people know that Joey has had another setback and the doctors are creating an all-new treatment plan for him. Carla commented on the publicly? Carla commented publicly and said the following: I'm beginning to question if he has actually been sick this long, or if y'all are trying to get more money for your wedding. Who takes this long to recover from surgery, especially when you're an athlete? Yeah, I wouldn't talk to that person for a while. That's a pretty nasty thing to say. Wow, you know what? You're not recovering in the time frame that I think you should be recovering in. Therefore, you're lying. Okay, sweetheart, chill out. I said, I'm very offended and appalled that you would accuse us of faking anything. Maybe you're just having a bad day or a moment of bad judgment, but how shamefully low of you. She replied, I want my donation back unless you can show proof that he's sick, in a hospital bed, or sitting in a doctor's office. Anything? I don't know. Sorry, you already donated the money. You're not getting it back, hun. $10? Nah, if you're gonna be petty about it, I'm gonna be petty about it. You have no right for it back. I sent her $10 to get her off our backs, but I also sent her a video with Joey's approval. The proof she asked for. One of the concerns Joey had is that he will get severely nauseous if he eats protein, which is what he's supposed to be doing, and when he overexerts himself, which he does sometimes. I sent her a video of him dry heaving into an emesis bag in the middle of PT. Now, one of his doctors asked us to record his PT so they can see the progression of him not feeling well to hopefully make some adjustments. So, I didn't take this video just to send to Carla, but to me it seemed like solid proof. She said, what the hell? I have emetophobia or emetophobia? I didn't know this, and you just triggered me so bad. I hope you're happy with yourself. I feel like I've been traumatized. I said, so now you have $10 more to go process this trauma in therapy. Boss introduces new time tracking tool to avoid time manipulation. Backfires on him. Doesn't it always, though? Doesn't it always backfire on them? Man, I work at a small startup company of around 12 people. It's a very good atmosphere in the office, and everyone pulls their weight and is super motivated. However, our boss likes to micromanage us, even though he has no expertise in any of our fields, marketing, design, accounting, whatever. Especially us in marketing and design suffer a lot from that, since he'll make changes to our strategies, posts, website, whatever, sometimes without telling us, and then gets upset at us when the customer feedback is bad and we aren't reaching our goals. So recently he told us that the reason he thinks we aren't seeing enough results is because we're manipulating our hours and not actually putting in the work we should. Until then, we each wrote down our hours manually in an Excel sheet. But with the new time tracking tool, he would see how long we were working down to the minute. We also could only log in on our desk PCs and previously approved home office devices, but not mobile, because if you're not at your desk, it's not work. After our initial shock passed and our boss left for the day, our manager called for a meeting and we came up with a plan. We would do as he says, in the most just follow the rules way possible. We would not engage in work-related conversations with him unless we were sitting at our desks and are clocked in. Any questions by him are asked, we are clocked out, will only be answered once we clock in again the following day. Every phone call, text message, or otherwise work-related things outside of the office would only be answered once there was an option for us to clock in, either the next day in office or, for some of us, on our home office device. Since we no longer have the option to shift time manually, all work minutes and hours would be clocked exactly when they took place. Side note, in my country, weekends pay better, Sundays have to be paid double, and working after 8 p.m. warrants additional financial benefits by law. Previously, if we needed to post something real quick or had a question, we would just add the weekend hours or late time to the upcoming Monday. Basically out of goodwill, but no more than that. We would stop independent activity, like posting on social media or writing an email, and would send him everything to approve before following through. Oh boy. After about a week, our boss was was so fed up with this, he gave us the option to clock in from our mobile devices so we could get a more immediate response, or so he could get a more immediate response to his questions. However, this of course led us to clocking in way more frequently since, as I said, he likes to micromanage and is therefore asking a lot of questions. I'm happy to report that as of 2024, we've abolished the system again and regained most of our independence, and even though our boss is still pissed about how we exploited the system, it brought the team closer together and hopefully taught him a lesson. I really hope that it did. Cop keeps interrogating me on where I'm coming from? My pleasure. Disclaimer, I'm a woman and was polite otherwise. When I was younger, I would visit natural parks. One time, I was driving home and a police officer pulled me over for alcohol testing. I politely complied, yet the officer must have thought I was peddling something because he asked for a further test and started interrogating me. I told him that I came from the natural park, yet he was asking me the same question on repeat. Finally, I kept a cordial demeanor, imagining myself as if I were talking to a coworker with the appropriate delivery. I went on a long monologue of how I enjoyed visiting natural parks, which road I had took there, where I stopped for petrol, and how much I paid for it, where I parked, which track I walked on, when did I decide to turn back on the track, which birds I saw, the weather at the park, and so on. Finally, after a minute, he told me to shush and then let me go after the drive became clear. I think some cops would have gotten more angry by this behavior, but what worked for me was my genuine delivery. I feel like the problem here is dude being an asshole for no reason to somebody who... Did he really have any reason to be testing you? The f is that about, dude?